Hey, mobility guru, I hope you're having an amazing day. It's been a minute since you've seen anything from me, and I wanted to do another video around Apple Business Manager. About a year or so ago, Apple did a complete UI change in Apple Business Manager where it kind of moved a couple things around and things just have changed. So in this video, I want us to take some time to walk you through the new UI of Apple Business Manager, all the features and capabilities around it. So this is a 2022, or really we're almost in 2023 walkthrough of Apple Business Manager. So before we start walking through Apple Business Manager and all the features and capabilities, I think it's really important to understand the value of Apple Business Manager. Standalone Apple Business Manager does not do a whole lot unless we're going to start using Apple Business Essentials, which we'll talk about in a second. On its own, Apple Business Manager doesn't do much. It requires an MDM. It's very important to note. Without an MDM, Apple Business Manager doesn't do a whole lot. The purpose of Apple Business Manager is a few things. One, it allows a reseller to upload those devices to your portal, and then you have that ownership of those devices. That's the first thing. The second thing is it allows you to supervise those devices. I like to look at supervision as it gives you the highest privileges on a device. The purpose of supervision is to take an iPhone, and move it from a consumer iPhone to an enterprise device. And by doing that, we enable supervision, which gives you that highest privileges on the device. Do things like always on VPN, single app mode, stuff that we really wouldn't want to do to a BYO device. And then thirdly, in conjunction with the MDM, it allows you to use automated enrollment. Automated enrollment is that whole magical setup process where you get an iPhone, you turn it on, you hit Wi-Fi, and then once you hit Wi-Fi, the device automatically starts walking itself into management. How that happens is the first time that any iOS or any Apple device hits Wi-Fi, it looks to activate against Apple servers. If a device is registered to a customer's Apple Business Manager, it's going to say, hey, this device belongs to this corporation. I'm automatically going to hand it off to the MDM. And that's where that magic happens, where we can use automated enrollment, where it just automatically starts walking itself into the MDM. So that is the value and purpose of Apple Business Manager. It's important to note we need an MDM if we want to make this worthwhile of anything. So with that said, let's look at the rest of everything else here. So when you first log into business.apple.com, you're going to be greeted with a very similar experience that you have here. I'll note that I am logged in as an admin. So if you're not logged as an admin, you may not see everything here. So if you have the ability, log in as an admin, so we're seeing the same screen, seeing the same stuff. But the first thing that you'll notice is this subscription up top. This is brand new. About a year or so ago, Apple introduced something called Apple Business Essentials. When you click on it, you'll be greeted with this screen here. Apple Business Essentials is Apple's MDM. Like I said, Apple Business Manager is not an MDM, but Apple Business Essentials is. Apple Business Essentials is a good first. Like if you have a really small needs or a small company, like a small business and so forth, Apple Business Essentials may be a really good option for you, especially if they're BYO devices and so forth. Where Apple Business Essentials is going to struggle is if we really need a lot of those advanced management, where we want SSO on applications, we want to do a lot of supervised type of restrictions, enable single app mode and stuff like that. So if you have a lot of growing advanced needs, Apple Business Essentials probably isn't going to be the right fit for you. But if you have a lot of smaller needs, we're just going to need to get email, we want to put a PIN code on device and stuff like that, Apple Business Essentials may be a good fit for you. So definitely worth, look at it depending on your needs. But again, if you have a lot of advanced needs, you're going to want to look at a full-blown MDM like a Jamf, the Workspace ONE, a Moz 360 and so forth. But if you're interested, go through that process. It's only it's $299 a month and so forth. But for the rest of this purpose, we're going to look at the other features and capabilities around Apple Business Manager and how they interact with your MDM as well. So right below subscription on the left-hand side, you have activity. This is just going to show you any new users, anything that the admin is doing when they're creating new users, and password resets and so forth. So that's what you'll see. You can download the logs for any of that. Locations is an important one. So when you're working with locations, especially if you have multiple MDMs, you want to create different locations for those MDMs and so forth. And locations actually play a really large role when we start using applications, distributing applications to MDMs from Apple Business Manager, because then you want to use locations to organize yourself. So I find customers use them in a variety of different ways. But in our own testing and development, we have a lot of engineers in here and testing those different things. So we have different locations for those engineers, and they assign those applications and other things based on those locations. But or locations is a way to help you organize, especially if you have multiple MDMs and so forth, to be able to designate certain applications and so forth to those different areas, and then syncing that back to your MDM. Users, this is where you're going to see all the users that you have for your organization. And then you can also, when you're looking at these, you can see the, what role they have in the organizations and so forth. To create a user, you want to hit the add button at the top. Once you hit the add button, you'll have this ability to fill out all this information. The thing that I'll point out is the managed Apple ID. So this is back a couple versions of iOS ago. Apple introduced managed Apple IDs. We want to look at managed Apple IDs, especially if we're going to start using user enrollment and so forth. So I'll get into managed Apple IDs in a little bit, but fill out all this information, select the domain that you have here, and then the roles are actually very important. So when you're creating that role, you can have people, device, content. I'll get into what those mean in a second. And then you'll also have staff. Staff I want to highlight. So staff, when you create a people manager, a device manager, like a people manager, for instance, this person can only manage the users. So, but they have ability to log into business.apple. They just only have ability to look at the users. Same with device enrollment, only looking at devices. When we create a staff account, this is a managed Apple ID, but it does not have access to it doesn't have access to Apple Business Manager. It is strictly a managed Apple ID that is used to log into iOS and so forth. So this is a manual way to create a managed Apple ID. I saw these created, like an example for healthcare. They were creating many tablets for certain use cases, and they just needed a quick way to create a managed Apple ID. This is one way to do it. And then that allows you to have access to things like FaceTime and stuff like that. It is best recommended to federate your identity providers or Azure Active Directory or whatnot, and then utilize that AD integration or the directory integration to create those managed Apple IDs. That's the best recommended route. But if you need to create one manually, this is how you would do it. So after all of that's done, just go ahead and click save. In this instance, I'm not going to save that. And then once you do that, you'll see the user here, and then what you want to do is hit create sign in. Once you hit create sign in, you'll be greeted with this, and usually you want to send an email to that. So this is when we're creating it manually, but you want to send that email, and then they would get an automated email from Apple to finish creating their setup. Also, when we do have a user that's already created and stuff like that, and then we, as an admin, we can go in and reset their password and so forth. So that is everything around the users. Let's drop down to user groups. This is, we don't usually use user groups in my tenant right now, but this is where actually Apple has a great article right here that goes over what those user groups are. So if we need to, have some more organization around, location and bringing in users based on roles and stuff like that, this is where you would utilize the smart groups and within there. Dropping down below user group is your access management. So this is the roles that I was talking about. So if you ever want to understand what those different roles mean when we're creating those users, this is where you'd be able to find all of that. Right below roles is sign with Apple. This is new with the latest release of iOS 16, I believe. And it allows users to log into apps with their managed Apple ID. So this is where you can configure that if we want to look at specific apps. So I'll say not all apps are configured to allow this sign in with Apple with the managed Apple ID. So go ahead and look for things like I'll look for Outlook, and I know that Outlook is not ready for that. And maybe not a good choice for an application there, but this is where you'd be able to see what applications support that and so forth. So if your organization is looking to utilize managed Apple IDs, just a pro tip, sometimes you hear them called MAIDs, MAID, managed Apple ID. But just if you hear that language, I know the IT industry loves their acronyms. So, this is where you'd be able to configure that. dropping down to devices, where an IT administrator will probably spend a lot of their time. This is where you'll be able to see all the different devices that are coming in from your reseller, or if you're using Apple Configurator, whether that's on the Mac or the new iPhone version of Apple Configurator, this is where they would populate here. So I'll go ahead and select this iPad unassigned version, so because that way I can actually edit it. So when you have a device that's coming from your reseller, these are all the devices that you're seeing here are we manually enrolled via Apple Configurator, but most likely you're going to see those devices come from your reseller, so you'll have a little bit of different data attributes on here. But when you get those devices, the next thing you want to do as an IT administrator is assign those devices. To do that, select whatever devices or order ID or whatever that may be, and go ahead and hit Edit Server at the top. Once you hit Edit Server, then you can start assigning those devices to the different MDMs that you have within your organization. So just go ahead and select the MDM, and then once you select it, the continue will populate and you'll be good to go. I'm not going to assign this one just because this is an active test environment, but just hit continue and that device assigns itself. And then bam, it's in the MDM. Give it a couple minutes of sync and you'll be able to interact with that device, utilize supervision and automated enrollment and all of that. There is also a button up here called Release Organization to the right of Edit MDM Server. So say you have a device that, it's past this age and we're not using it anymore, so maybe we want to gift it or whatever that may be. Go ahead and hit Release Organization. You're going to get some prompts to say, are you sure you want to do this? Because once you release that, it cannot come back in unless we manually do it through Apple Configurator. Go ahead and just hit that and hit release, and then once that happens, that device is gone. So that is a permanent thing. So just be careful with that. Make sure you actually want to release that and not reassign it to maybe a different MDM, which leads me to my next transition is, let's say I've got a device right now. This is actually in a Jamf MDM server, and maybe I'm moving from MDM to an MDM. So I'm going maybe from like Microsoft Intune to Jamf, for instance. So I can hit this Edit MDM server and hit assign, and I can assign it to a new MDM, or say I just want it to be in limbo for a while, I can unassign it from the current MDM. But a lot of times you just see, let's reassign it to another MDM. So that's how you would do that. It's important to note there, anything that we do here, so any of these assignments, so if we're assigning to an MDM server, unassigning, even releasing or reassigning, nothing happens to a device until it is reset. It's very important. So say you've got devices that are maybe in Microsoft Intune, and then you come in here and assign it to Jamf, nothing will happen to those devices in Intune. They will continue to be managed by Intune. You can continue to push new profiles and configurations to them. But say we're ready for migration, we want to throw all those devices into Jamf now. You can either have the user just do a factory reset, or you can go to Intune and initiate a factory reset directly from there. And then once they go through the enrollment process again, where they activate back with Apple Server and says, hey, this device belongs here now, that's when that would happen. So it's just important to note, anything you do here, nothing happens to a device till it's factory reset. It has to activate against Apple servers again. So just a quick pro tip there. You can make these changes and you don't have to worry about things happening in production until the device is factory reset. So that is devices. Let's drop down to assignment history. So this is just where you're going to see that log of, what's going on with your devices, things that are being added and so forth. Apps and books. So if you've been managing Apple devices for a long time, you may call this VPP. At the top of my head, I forget what Apple's calling it right now, but this is how we manage our applications. So you see here, I've actually purchased quite a bit of applications here. This is where those locations come into play. So say I want to provision Netflix to a couple tablets and so forth. And I would choose my location. So I would chase, hey, I'm going to put these in my Jamf server, and then location, how many devices, and then just hit get, and then those will sync to Jamf automatically. So locations are important here, especially if you've got multiple MDMs. It keeps you organized on where we're sending those different applications. The value of this is, why would I want to use Apple Business Manager to distribute applications than just the regular MDM? The MDM can provision public stores as well as the apps that you get from Apple Business Manager. However, if you push a public store app through the MDM, what's going to happen is, especially if that device is set up, doesn't have an iCloud account, and you push that app, it's going to prompt that user to put in an iCloud account. And then you as an IT may get a ticket and say, hey, I don't know, I can't get my app. It's asking me for an iCloud account. If we want to get around that, we want to utilize Apple Business Manager to push those applications to those devices, because essentially we're embedding our corporate identity on that application when we're purchasing it here, and then syncing it to the MDM. And then the MDM is the mechanisms to do all the configuration, application distribution, and stuff like that. So it's just best if these are corporate applications, whether they're free or paid. Purchase them from Apple Business Manager and then sync them to the MDM and have the MDM distribute that. That way we don't have to worry about iCloud accounts and all of that kind of stuff. Managed Apple IDs kind of come into play there a little bit as well. That's how we would utilize Apple Business Manager. And to look for apps, just hit at the top right here. Look at that, hit that top there, and then we're just going to search for any application. So maybe I want to give them Paramount Plus for some reason. You just search for whatever you need, and then just similarly to what we just saw, just select the location and the quantity that you need and distribute those. Further down, we have custom apps. So I run into this more rarely, but there are some times where you're working with a developer where they don't have the app in the public app store, so they're going to give you a private app to distribute through Apple Business Manager and then to the MDM. So again, rarely, I don't see them as often anymore, but in this process, usually you'll get a code or some kind of workflow from the application developer to integrate into your Apple Business Manager account. And then similarly to apps and content, we're just going to distribute them the same way. They're just going to be a private app that's not searchable in the public app store. All right, further down, you're going to go ahead and at the very bottom left, just select your name and hit that, and that's where this is a little different than probably what you're used to if you're familiar with the old UI. So go hit that and go ahead and hit preferences. So this is where we get into the nitty gritty here. So at the very top, you got your profile information about who you are, but enrollment information is important. So when you're working with a reseller and they need to add devices to your Apple Business Manager instance, they're going to ask you for your organization ID. To find that is under enrollment information. So that's a good one to remember because you're probably going to be getting asked that a lot, especially if you're working with multiple resellers. So that's an important one under enrollment information. Payments and billing, right under enrollment. So payments, if you need to add a credit card, this is where you do it. And why we would want to add a credit card to Apple Business Manager: one, especially if you're using Apple Business Essentials, you're going to need to pay for that. And then two, if you're going to purchase any apps and books. So, if you go to apps and books, you can search for, like, let's say Final Cut Pro, which is like a $300 application. You need to pay for that somehow. So you can add a corporate credit card here. There are other ways to do that. So if some organizations I've worked with that they don't want a credit card on their account, so you can work with your reseller like a CDW that allows you to essentially purchase credits via a PO and then apply them to your Apple Business Manager instance. So there's ways around that if applying a credit card is not a good route for your organization. Work with your reseller to see if there's anything else out there. Under payments and billing also is apps and books. So this comes back to when we're working with Apple Business Manager MDM, we have to do two assignments. Essentially, we have to integrate the MDM to Apple Business Manager so the devices will sync. And then also, if we utilize apps and book from Apple Business Manager, we also have to integrate the application side of Apple Business Manager to your MDM. So that is a conversation in itself. A lot of the MDMs have great documentation on there, but essentially for both integrating to the MDM as well as integrating the apps to the MDM, it's a token. It's a token exchange. So to do that, once you have all of your locations and MDM set up, you can download the token from here and then integrate that to your MDM. Again, your MDMs, it's going to be a separate area within the settings of your MDM. Just follow their documentation. Maybe someday I'll make a video on it, but that's where you would find that token at least. So if you're looking for that token to say, hey, I need a token to have my applications sync to my MDM, this is where you find it. Payments, billings, and then apps and books. And then you'd see all the tokens available depending on what locations and MDM servers you have set up. So that's payment and billing. Dropping down to accounts. Accounts is where you're going to see all your domains. This is where it's very important when we start doing things like Active Directory federation. So if we want to utilize our existing IDP to create those managed Apple IDs and stuff like that, we want to actually do federation. In this instance, we have one already federated, but you would hit edit, and then you'd have Google Workspace or Microsoft Azure AD as the two options currently supported by Apple for Active Directory federation. So just follow the prompts. That blue button would be continue, or it would prompt you through the workflow of federating that. So, but that's how you would get that done. I do recommend federating if you can. That just allows that the directory sync and so forth. And then you've got a couple different settings down here that you can sort as well. Directory sync. So if we are doing federation, then we can sync all of those users and so forth directly into Apple Business Manager. Beta features, nothing has ever populated for me here, but if you're, when things do and you want to start testing stuff, that's where you select that. Now we're getting into the nitty gritty. So the MDM servers, this is going to be the main thing you're using Apple Business Manager is to sync your MDM. So to do that, you see here, I've got a lot of MDM servers already. You can have as many MDM servers as you need. There's no limit there. So if you've got a Jamf server, a Workspace ONE server, an Intune server, whatever, you can have them all, and maybe you're using them all for different use cases. So you can have as many as you want. To create an MDM server, you'll hit the add button, and then give it a name, and then you're going to need to upload a token. So this is where your MDM comes into play. We're going to be doing a lot of upload, download, and upload. So I won't walk through that in this video, but a lot of the MDMs have great documentation. So essentially, go to your MDM. Somewhere in settings, there's going to be a setting for automated device enrollment. It's also sometimes called DEP or device enrollment program, depending on what language they may be using in their MDM. But most of them have upgraded to automated device enrollment. So choose that. And that when you're going through that, it's going to give you the ability to download a token. Once you get that token, you're going to upload it here. And then once you upload it there, you're going to be able to download that token to then upload to your MDM. It's a lot of upload, download, upload. It's not a difficult process, and it's fairly easy. So once we upload it here, I can go to that server, and then this is another MDM instance. Then I can download that token and then upload it into my MDM server. So that's all that we need to do there. And then once you have those tokens associated and they're talking to each other, bam, you're done. Then we can start assigning devices to that MDM server. So that's where. So once we have the MDM server done, it's syncing. We go back to our devices, and we'd start assigning those devices to those MDM servers. So that's how that works. One thing that I will share with you, kind of a pro feature here. So there's two really important things that I'll go through. When you click on MDM server assignment, you're going to see two fields. The first field's actually very important. So go ahead and hit edit under here. When this is your reseller number. So when you're working with a reseller, they will ask you for your organization ID, which we saw in enrollment information, but also need their reseller ID, and you will need to add it here. Why this is very important is if you don't add that reseller as an approved reseller here, the devices that they enroll for you will not show up until you do so. It's very important here. So they will ask for yours, and they need to give you theirs as well. So make sure that you go through that process as well. So once you get that, again, you can have as many of resellers under here as you want. Just get their numbers and hit add. The next one is more of a pro tip. We don't have any default MDM server assignments right now, but say you only have maybe one or two MDM servers, or like you just have one. Instead of, me as an IT administrator, I don't want to go into devices every day and assign devices to an MDM server. We can make that happen automatically. So maybe I want all iPads to go to my Jamf lab, and I want all my Macs to go to my Jamf lab, but for some odd reason I want my iPhones to go to my Workspace ONE lab, and so forth. You can say which devices go where automatically, and then once you save that, when a reseller uploads the devices based on that OS platform, it's automatically going to go to that MDM server. So you as an admin don't need to come in here every so often and make sure that those assignments are going there. It's automatically going to happen. Automation is a big thing everyone likes. So just a quick pro tip there for default MDM MDM server assignments. But a good thing, especially if you don't have if you have the ability to do it, I recommend do it. In this instance, we have way too many MDM servers and we can't do automated assignments. But if you got the ability, definitely recommend it. But it's a really good it's a really nice piece of automation that we can do. So. But I hope that was helpful for you. That is the walkthrough of Apple Business Manager 2022, 2023. I hope it gave you a better understanding of the features and capabilities and how to navigate and use Apple Business Manager. And again, I just want to note that make sure you're using an MDM. I mean, I hope that you were able to see some of the value there and why. But I look forward to creating more videos for you guys in the future. But in any way, have a great day. Peace.